Welcome back to Upside Down Data. Let's talk about Hedera Hashgraph. So if you're not familiar, Hedera Hashgraph is a layer 1 protocol that uses a novel consensus mechanism. It's not a blockchain, it's a hashgraph, and that allows it to be very fast and very cheap to use. A lot of different benefits that it has. Now, it's one that has tried to set itself up for enterprise business adoption. It has not really gone after the retail market so heavily, and its native token HBAR is one of the ones that's been performing especially well ever since the election. If we just go ahead and measure this move from election day, it's currently up over 100% to the upside, so quite nice move indeed. Now, it is notable in context that this is really it mean reverting back up to the higher end of the range that it had been in ever since the bottom of the bear market going in here in 2022, going into 2023. So it still has a ways to go before it can target all-time highs again, but certainly a great start. So what I want to talk about in this video is, what do the data say? How much further can we expect this rally to go, and how much further might we expect HBAR in general to be able to rally this cycle? So let's go ahead and get into it. So I want to start off by talking about risk as it relates to HBAR. So this is our long-term upside downside potential indicator, or UDPI. Cares about moves that play out over months to multiple months, and it's a risk model. High values mean high risk, low values mean low risk. So you can see that this rally is starting out of a pretty low risk point for HBAR, and now we're moving up aggressively. And we're nowhere near even the levels that we were at these local tops back over here in early 2024, and certainly nowhere near where we were back at the tops in 2021. So what that would suggest is that HBAR has a lot of room to work with to the upside going on from here. It's still below zero. It's at negative 1.06 as I currently record this. Plenty of room to work with to the upside. And if we look at the current health of this trend, so what I'm looking at here is the TCI, the Trend Confidence Indicator. So this is something that's geared to tell you about trend and how healthy that trend currently is. And the way you look at this model is, how is it moving in relation to price? If you see the TCI start to move up aggressively, then price will often move up as well. If you see the TCI start moving down aggressively, price will often then correct. It's basically telling you whatever trend you're currently in, to the upside or to the downside. If the TCI is moving up with it, that's a good sign. If it's moving against it, that's a bad sign. So what we saw here was that we saw kind of this bullish divergence where price was moving down, the TCI was moving up, and then off to the races now we have gone. And what's also interesting is the extremity of this move up on the TCI is quite distinctive. We don't see this very often with HBAR, and only tends to happen really on these big major moves, either in the middle of full-on bull markets or very aggressive rallies, maybe out of the depths of a bear market like we saw over here. And so importantly, when you see these big spikes, generally speaking, the rally isn't done yet when you see this. Even going back to this very early rally here in 2020, this first big move up shot it up quite aggressively, but then we had another massive leg up till we actually got to the top of that run. Same thing with this bull market. Big spikes up early on in this rally, and then we had more room to go. Big spikes up early in this rally, more room to go. And so I think that the same thing might be able to happen here, where there might be some short-term consolidation that needs to happen from current levels, but it does seem like we probably have more room to go. This is a massive impulse. It probably has more room to take it up first before we end up getting a more notable correction. And what you look for when that correction is coming is, when is the TCI moving down aggressively? And you start really moving down aggressively, that would be a suggestion that price, it might be able to go up a little bit more, but then a correction might be coming. So if we did see the TCI just fall off a cliff from here, then it's possible we don't see a continuation, but just from a historical perspective, that would be unusual. Generally speaking, you will see at least some amount of continuation. And I think if the broader alt season really kicks off and continues, if Bitcoin is able to continue moving up, I see no reason why HBAR won't be able to continue up as well. And we just saw from a risk perspective, it's got plenty of room to work with this cycle to the upside. So it might be a bumpy ride, it might be choppy, it's probably not going to be a straight line up, but I do think that HBAR will continue up higher this cycle than what we've seen already. Now, the broader question then is, how much higher might we expect it to go? Are we just going to go clearly break above all-time highs and off to the races? Let's talk about some factors that will impact that probability. The main one I wanted to call out was what's been going on with HBAR in relation to its market cap and what that tells us about how high it might be able to go in this market cycle. So the blue line here is the market cap. The red line here is the price. you'll notice a very interesting dynamic that's played out. Early on, back here in 2020, you see that they went in lockstep with each other. Market cap and price basically the same. But then this big divergence opened up. And it's important to remember, market cap is calculated by price times the amount of circulating supply of the asset at that point in time. So really what's going on here is the reason we're seeing this big chasm between market cap, which is way higher than price, is that circulating supply has exploded for HBAR ever since this early phase of this bull market and through the bear market. Tons of new HBAR have been unlocked and put out into the circulating supply. And what's important to know about that is it just means that for price to get back to the same levels it was back here in 2021, you'll need more demand to step in. There's more supply available. Therefore, you need more demand to come in to outweigh that supply to get price back up to that same point. So when you look at the current HBAR chart, we can see that it's probably been the case that part of the reason why HBAR's price has been so depressed this entire time is because of that massive amount of new supply that's come in, that more and more supply has been getting dumped onto the market. And then even though there's been likely an incremental increase in demand through this period, it's been suppressed, or basically you don't see that demand showing up in the price chart because of that increased supply. What you really need to see for HBAR to rip higher, and especially to set new all-time highs, is a massive pouring in of new demand. Just massive new demand, higher than the demand that we saw back here, to outweigh that new supply, get us up to higher prices. And in a full-on bull market, that certainly is possible. But the one of the things you might want to look at or think about is, are there narratives? Because narratives are really what matter in bull markets. Fundamentals do not matter, or they are much less important, or they only matter to the extent to which they can drive narratives. And so if you're evaluating HBAR, one of the things that you can think about is, are there narratives that you think can catch on relating to HBAR that could bring in that massive new influx of demand to shoot the price up that far? I'll leave it up to you to make that decision, but that's what I would be personally thinking about. Because HBAR could do very nicely just to get back up to prior all-time highs. We're still talking about a move of about 550%, quite nice. But to really break above that, we need to see more hype, more demand than we saw at the height of the cycle last time around. So just important to keep that in mind. And I bring that up with the HBAR specifically because HBAR is an asset where this is more pronounced than some. Crypto assets in general can have a lot of inflation, especially layer one protocols, but HBAR has been extremely high on that end of the amount of inflation that's experienced. So I just do think that's important to keep in mind. So I'll leave it up to you to decide whether or not you think that demand will come in, and that's not really a big deal, and that price will shoot off to the upside no matter what. Up to you. But that's just one thing to keep in mind. So there is quite a bit of upside remaining for HBAR, and we have seen this massive impulse that can send it up higher. But ultimately, where you might be targeting by the end of the cycle will depend on how much of that new demand you think might show up. All right, so that's what I'm seeing with HBAR we're looking at right now. Of course, none of this is financial advice. You should make your own opinions. So if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us over on X. A lot of updates from our models and more over there. And go to our website, claritydigital.io, to see live data from our models and more.